Welcome to True Talk on WMNF 88.5 with Ahmed and Samar. Today's a live show, and this is the week of the inauguration, which happened earlier this week. Samar and I are going to talk a little bit about that, but we're also going to speak about what's happening in Gaza. The latest there, of course, there's a fragile ceasefire that's holding in place, and Palestinians are returning back to their homes in Gaza to find them in rubble. There's nothing left there. Everything is destroyed. We're going to get eyewitness account by one of the youngest journalists out of Gaza. In Arabic, it's called Gaza. And he'll tell us what people are finding as they return home. Of course, this is just the first stage of the ceasefire, which is 6 weeks long. And we'll talk about whether that's going to continue after the 6 weeks, or will Israel return back to the fighting, as Netanyahu has said. This and more, and maybe your phone calls if we have time. This is True Talk on WMNF. We'll be right back.
رقدت ونحلم وفكت نجري على سرابي وفي غيبوبة وينك يا صحوبة وطلعوا ذيوبة وناس خوانة بيوسنا مقلوبة وطلب بالتوبة وأيام محسوبة والوقت يخذنا فكرت أيامي وقلت يا حسرة مخيب هالدنيا ومحلاها الدنيا بلا غسرة فكرت أيامي وقلت يا حسرة مخيب هالدنيا ومحلاها الدنيا بلا غسرة فحكيت لأمي ما وناس بالقيمة وعشرة قديمة وقلت يا حسرة رضيت والدينا وينك يا حنينة تفرقنا مشينا وقلت يا حسرة فكرت روحي لقيت روحي ضاعت مني رقد متحير وينو لي رقد متهني عجبتني الجارة اليوم الجارة عروسة تحني فكرت الليالي ساهر كل فرزي تنغني وشربنا الروجة.
Welcome back to True Talk on WMNF 88.5 with Ahmed and Samar. And today is Thursday, January 23rd, and we are facing an onslaught of executive orders coming out of the Trump White House. Not sure what to make of it. Basically, almost everything well, not everything, but a lot of what Biden enacted is now being reversed. One of the things that I found surprising was this, that the Health and Human Services Department can no longer send out any communication or advisories. Everything has been halted. Also, virus research has been halted, and there are all these viruses are circulating now, so I'm not sure how that's making us safer. Of course, Trump's administration, or when they were campaigning, they said they were going to do a lot of this stuff. People didn't believe them. Are you there?
Assalamu alaikum, Ahmed. Yes, I am here witnessing amazing stuff going on that I can't keep up with.
Yeah, it's like so much. By the time you process something, then something else is happening. So you watched the inauguration. What surprised you the most? I mean, did you see all those tech billionaires seated behind Trump?
Yeah, that was, I think, something quite interesting because I thought that people wanted somebody that relates to them and relates to their economic capabilities. So the people who were there, their combined wealth is like half of the wealth of the Western Hemisphere. So, yes, that was surprising. But you know what is alarming is that these people are in control of a medium that allows people who are not part of the mainstream media to have access to.
Mm.
So, whether it is Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, it's an outlet for people who cannot reach the mainstream media, like, let's say, Fox News or CNN. Like, how many times you can communicate with those people who run them or own them or have platforms on them. But on Twitter, you can send the president a tweet. You can tag the State Department. You can tell the New York Times that this title of this article is wrong or misleading or biased. So this marriage, this unholy marriage between people who control such social media and power is really alarming.
Right.
For me.
Yes. I remember because we've been doing this show for a long time, over 20 years. I don't want to age ourselves or you. But I remember there was a campaign that we were part of at some point against big media. I don't know if you remember that. And I think we even participated in some symposiums about breaking up big media and how a few media, and back then we're talking about legacy media companies like, GE that own all these networks, NBC and others, and that, Viacom, or if I remember if that's their name, Time Warner. These were the big legacy medias. Now they've been replaced by this digital media and the new media and these billionaire oligarchs, which most of them are basically controlling information. I mean, Google is not making any product. It's a software, and it handles a lot of communication, the things that we search for on the internet. So again, it comes down to the information and people's access to information. And when we have a constitutional right to freedom of speech and freedom of the press, but how, what is that worth if, for example, it's all consolidated in the hands of a few billionaires that control everything that we see? And case in point, even companies that are not owned by Americans, like TikTok, which went dark on Sunday because of the law banning it. And it went into effect after the Supreme Court said, no, the law can stand. And Trump said he wants to save it. And it went dark for a while. And then I don't know if you saw, but later that same day, I think later on Sunday, they put a message saying, we're back online thanks to Trump because, he promised to save it. And the CEO of TikTok was at the inauguration. And now people are going on TikTok. And you and I have said this before, that the entire reason, the whole reason they were banning TikTok to begin with was not for the stated goal or the reason that they were saying that, they were worried about China and the security and China interference in America. Most of it, maybe that was before, but it really kicked into high gear when after October 7th, most of TikTok global trending was that, people were calling for free Palestine and to end the genocide and criticizing Israel, and Palestinians inside Gaza were sharing the live streaming, the genocide that's happening there. And even not Fox News, but you might as well call them Fox News, but the ADL, they were sounding the alarms about how TikTok is a problem for them because they can't control it. And finally, now that TikTok is back, if you put in the search term free Palestine or actually write it in, it gets blocked or removed, and it calls it hate speech. So now the compromise for TikTok remaining is not about, criticizing Trump or the American government but it's about criticism of Israel. And they're banning that all under the guise of, this is anti-Semitism. So now saying something as like free Palestine on TikTok, if you try to put that comment, they'll flag it automatically. Their algorithm flags it as hate speech. And that's very disturbing.
Yes, Ahmed, I am not very good at TikTok. I did an account there. I created an account simply because of this conversation that took place after October 7. And then when I saw the head of the president of the ADL saying you know, there are billions of posts and impressions when it comes to Palestine, but not when it comes to Israel. And we should control that. And then I said, okay, let me go there and see what is going on. And I was amazed because I thought, okay, maybe there is activism on the part of Palestinians or Palestinian Americans or American Muslims. But no, it was like your average American and even below average American people who are not young or not savvy when it comes to social media and are just asking legitimate questions. Why are we financing this? Why are we sending bombs? And why this and why that? And it went even more than that, and starting to tell other people what to do and how much of our taxes goes to financing this war. So yes, I can see that, but I haven't gone there lately to try and do to say what you just said, to do Free Palestine, to put Free Palestine and see what comes out there. But what is interesting is that more than 15 million Americans went actually during the ban to Chinese websites and Chinese.
Yeah, Red Note. I think it's called Red Note. It's an app called Red Note. It's basically like the Chinese TikTok.
So they pushed people to go actually into the system of the Chinese government. But I always believe, Ahmed, that that there is, no matter what governments in general, and not only in the US or in the Arab world, no matter how much they want to suffocate the masses or suffocate dissent or suffocate the idea of reaching out or coordinating with each other, is doomed to fail, and it will force people to find alternatives.
Right.
Like how we ended up with Twitter, and how we ended up with all these social platforms, how we ended up with TikTok. I am sure that there are so many other less known ones. Trump created one. What is it called? Social
Truth.
Social thing, because he felt that he's being censored.
Well, I mean, they did kick him off all those platforms, and now he wants to, go back and punish them. It's so amazing that, Meta and Zuckerberg, who kicked Trump off their platform, they banned him, and now they're just running to Trump at the inauguration, all lined up behind him. I mean, these are the richest people in the world. But even with the richest people in the world, they don't have the dignity to just, because they know that Trump can impact their businesses being president, and now they have to get on the bandwagon, either, support and jump on. And, somebody like Mark Zuckerberg has this whole makeover now that he is somehow becoming MAGA and criticizing other things. But one thing that, even though you can go on there and you can question issues about LGBTQ and transgender and the whole issue about male and female, things that were not allowed because they were being moderated. But the one thing that continues to be moderated and banned on Meta is any type of support for Palestine or criticism of Israel. Right away, any criticism of Israel is equated to anti-Semitism. And, we've had so many Jewish people and guests on our show that says Israel is not Judaism. Israel is a country established by the Zionist doctrine, and that is not Judaism. When Judaism was revealed and practiced for centuries and for thousands of years, Zionism did not exist. Zionism is a recent phenomenon. It's a, ultra supremacist nationalist. In a way, it's similar to what some have described as white supremacy, but Jewish supremacy or Zionist supremacy ideology. And it's now, it's been around for 100 years or a little bit over 100 years. And most Jewish people resisted it at the beginning. But somehow now they've succeeded to equate Zionism with Judaism, which most, authentic rabbis will say, well, they're not. It's not, Zionism is not part of the Jewish faith. This is a political ideology that came out of Eastern Europeans. It's not indigenous to the land. Sure, there were Jewish people and Semites and the children, I guess, the tribes of Israel that are indigenous to that part of the world. But the people that established Zionism were not from those tribes. So anyway, we'll probably generate some hatred about that. But again, Samar and I, or at least, both of us have always said that we respect the religion of Judaism. In fact, Judaism is recognized in the Quran as one of the legitimate religions or ways of life. They're called the people of the book, Christianity and Judaism. And it's very much part of our faith to believe in those prophets, to believe in Moses, to believe in Abraham. I'm getting into personal religious beliefs here, but because people will oftentimes hear the comments on the air and say, oh, well, you're being anti-Semitic. Why are you criticizing Zionism? Well, you see what Zionism and the people that are leading Zionism today, maybe at the beginning, some of the people had other motives, but right now, the leaders of Zionism is Benjamin Netanyahu, Ben Gvir, all these folks that are running the country of, the government of Israel. That's the face of Zionism. And we see the results of that in what's happening in Gaza. And obviously, that is not part of the Jewish faith. To annihilate and kill all these children in Gaza, that is definitely not part of the Jewish faith. However, they want you to think that somehow that they're both equal or one and the same, which I think is really dangerous and can lead to real anti-Semitism by people. If you're trying to equate your political and military activities of Israel to equate that to as representative of Judaism, I think that's dangerous, and Jewish people should be concerned about that. Just like you and I, Samar, are very concerned when people say, well, the Taliban represents Islam, or, Al-Qaeda represents, they're one and the same. We hear that often, especially from Islamophobes, and we say, no, they're not. They don't represent Muslims, and they're far from it.
On another news, Ahmed, I'm not sure if you followed the Oscars, but the Oscar just nominated No Other Land, a joint actually Palestinian-Israeli documentary, because the Yuval Abraham and Basil Arda are the ones who created this documentary. And 2 hours after this was published, the IDF invaded the village and started searching homes and harassing the whole area of Masafer Yatta, because this movie was nominated for the Oscars. Amazing what Israel can do with impunity.
So basically, let's get this right. The Oscars Awards nominated this film called No Other Land, which is produced or directed by an Israeli and a Palestinian?
Yeah.
And then right after that, a few hours later, the Israeli military went and invaded the home of who? The Palestinian?
The whole area of Masafer Yatta and where the Palestinian lives.
Okay, so Masafer Yatta is where the film takes place?
No, that's where the guy is from.
Oh, okay. So basically, not only did they invade his home, but they basically surrounded and invaded the whole village.
Yes, and this, No Other Land talks about this group of Bedouins who live in Israel proper. Okay, so Masafer Yatta is in what is known as the State of Israel, but because there are, Bedouins who live there,
Bedouins are like nomads that kind of...
Yeah. No, you cannot say nomads, because They're just like so connected to the land, but according to weather and season, they may go to the east, to the north, to the west. But they're all now are in Masafar Yatta, and Israel wants to confiscate all this land. Mind you, these are Israeli citizens.
Right, but
Okay.
I mean, there are laws now that are being proposed within Israel to kick out even the Israeli citizens who happen to be Arab. That,
Yes.
these are people that hold
Who happen
Israeli
to be
citizenship, but
Palestinian.
but they're originally
Don't say-
Palestinian.
Yeah, don't say Arab, because in the minds of some people, when you say Arab, oh, okay, Arab, Egyptian is Arab, Sudanese is Arab, Saudi is Arab, so why don't they go there? No, these
Okay.
are not, we are not Arabs. We are originally Palestinian.
Right.
Then we became Arabized when we started adopting the Arabic language.
Right, but I mean, same thing. I'm originally from Egypt, so but you can be Egyptian and Arab, right?
Yeah, but when it comes to the Palestinians,
The Egyptians were not originally Arab. Also, they became Arab later because they
When we
speak the
started
language. But we're also Egyptian.
So this documentary, No Other Land, is talking about the struggle of Palestinian Israeli citizens who are being harassed on a daily basis, shot at, killed, in order to confiscate their village. And this particular one is called Musafir Yatta, just like Port Charlotte or Ponta Gorda. So that's Musafir Yatta, and they immediately went into this village and started searching the homes of people in a form of intimidation.
Now, Samar, you're Palestinian.
Yeah.
But why did some Palestinians, I mean, I know this, but maybe our listeners don't. Some Palestinians have Israeli citizenship and some Palestinians are out in the West Bank, which with no, with not Israeli citizenship.
In the let's say in 1948, when the State of Israel was formally formed and recognized by the US, and later on recognized by several Western nations. And whoever survived the ethnic cleansing and were in an area called Lid, where my father was born and grandfather were born, all of them. Okay, in the case of my family, my grandfather was one of the leading personalities in Lid, and he was exiled with another 31 Palestinians from all over Palestine in the 1930s to Seychelles, the island, because they were aware of what is Israel planning. The Jewish immigrants were planning to take over the land, so they exiled them. Anyways, the time leading to the 1948, in 1946 and 1947, there were like mini wars going on. They surrounded the area of Lid and rounded up all the young men, 18 and above, 16, 14 and above, and started shooting them. So Al-Mukhtar, like the elders of the area.
He's like the mayor?
Yeah, yes, and including my grandfather, they said, okay, let's not sacrifice more people and listen. It was called the Elon, I think, plan, and let's go to Jordan. So they started the march to Jordan to leave Lid under the threat of a massacre that already started, which was the Dahmash Mosque massacre, which is where my family is from. So my grandfather said, I can't sacrifice everybody's lives. So he took his family and whoever was able to leave and gather stuff and left, hoping that maybe they can come back. So there are people who remained, could not flee, or in the case of my husband's cousin, had pneumonia who went to the mountains with his mom, came back to Akko in the north and found like the whole town deserted and all his family gone. He remained. So those people who remained were not killed, were not forced to flee, became, after many, many years, they were given citizenship. So they are Palestinian, they can be Christian, and they can be Muslim. And of course, they married and multiplied, and their number now is very close to the number of Israelis. So these have, at least, if I'm not mistaken, more than 50 laws within the laws of the state of Israel that discriminates against them. So you have an example of Musafir Yatta, where these Palestinians have always lived on this land, and they have Israeli passport, but Israel can shoot at them, can confiscate their land, can poison their wells, and nobody would say
Are these
anything.
things they've done?
Yeah, they have done. If you Google
Poison
Musafir,
their wells?
Yeah, to force them, because these people live on, they have cattle, they have sheep, they have lots of dairy products and stuff that Israelis come to buy from them because it's cheaper. It's cheaper.
Are they
to
like
buy.
the Amish when you go to their area
Yes,
and buy
yes,
natural stuff from them?
Yeah, it's cheaper. Same thing actually when I visited Palestine, and I wanted to visit where my husband was from, which is in the north, which is close to Lebanon, which is in the state of Israel. So the lady who was supposed to meet me, I was gonna be staying in an Airbnb with a Palestinian family. So they told me, okay, wait for us at this, let's say, square. So I'm waiting. Then she comes in her car, and there is no space for me to sit. And I said, "What's this?" She had, Ahmed, like thousands of vegetables, fruits, onions, potatoes, meat, chicken. And I said, "What's this?" She said, "Oh, we go to the West Bank to buy our weekly grocery." Mind you, she has like a mini hotel, so she has to feed people, so she buys more than the average. And she said, "This is what we do. This is what most people do. They go to the West Bank and buy their produce from there, buy their cheeses, buy their chicken, buy their vegetables, fruits, lemons, oranges from the West Bank because it's cheaper." So
Okay.
you have a very interesting economic system
So
going
this is
on.
the film that's nominated is now actually physically the producer's being attacked because he was nominated for an Oscar, which of course Israel's always concerned that how they are painted in the media and in movies, because that impacts public perception, and they heavily depend on misinformation in order to continue their occupation. Now, of course, with the Trump administration coming into power, they've nominated many people that are going up for confirmation hearings, where the Senate has these hearings, and then they vote to confirm these nominations. Positions like Secretary of State, who has been nominated by Trump, Marco Rubio, was actually got 99 votes, like out of 100, 99 to 0. Apparently, it was the vote for Marco Rubio. Really surprising, and he's a big pro-Israel hawk and staunch Zionist from Florida. But yesterday there was Elise Stefanik, who is the representative from New York, and she was the one that led this witch hunt against the universities like Harvard and Columbia and other universities accusing them of anti-Semitism. Initially, they had accused him because of other issues, because of DEI, diversity, what is it, DEI? And inclusion. What's the E stand for? I'm forgetting. Equity, maybe, yeah, diversity, equity, and inclusion, that they wanted to get rid of these programs, things like that universities should be diverse, and against things like affirmative action. So she was up for a nomination at the nomination hearing, and she had this exchange with Senator Chris Van Hollen. I want to play it for you, where she refused to say whether Palestinians should have the right to self-determination. When he asked her about the Palestinians' right to self-determination, she just started talking about something else, and then later on, she dropped this bombshell that she really doesn't believe in. She believes that Israel has a right to the West Bank, a biblical right. So let me just play this for you and get your reaction.
Representative Stefanik, it was a very simple question. I just asking you if you agree with the statement that in order to achieve long-term peace and stability in the Middle East, that we have to secure the human rights and rights of self-determination for both Israelis and Palestinians. That's a yes or no?
I support human rights for all, and I think it's a disgrace that Hamas and Hezbollah have stripped human rights of the Palestinian people, and we need to ensure that we are standing up for human rights, and Israel is standing up for human rights. It is a beacon of human rights in the region.
We agree with that. I asked you in my office also about whether Palestinians have the right of self-determination. My understanding was you said yes. Do you have a different answer today?
That was not the direct question that we discussed. I said the Palestinian people...
You believe that Palestinians have the right of self-determination?
I believe the Palestinian people deserve so much better than the failures that they've had from terrorist leadership.
It's just a pretty simple question.
And I believe we need peace in the region. Of course they deserve human rights.
So...
I want to ensure that, number one...
He wasn't asking, do they deserve human rights? He's asking, do they have a right to self-determination, meaning they have their own state, they have the right to vote, things like that, to choose their, future or their government. But she keeps going around saying, of course they deserve better than what they already have. That's not in dispute.
When we bring the hostages home,
so do all of us. Representative
Isn't
Stefanik,
she a Catholic?
Yeah, I believe so, but she's,
she knows how to get her way around, I guess, in Washington, in the corridors.
She's become one of the biggest. I mean, a lot of these politicians in Congress, they owe their success to groups like AIPAC. So they get a lot of funding from them, and others are just terrified that they'll be, campaigned against. The AIPAC will pour money. AIPAC and their allies, the pro-Israel lobby, will pour so much money against them. But listen to the rest of this. There's about 30 seconds left.
Ask you. I have 30 seconds left. I'm rarely surprised by answers in my office, but I did ask you whether you subscribe to the views of Finance Minister Smotrich.
Of who? I'm sorry,
Smotrich. This is the Israeli finance minister.
She's going to go to the UN, represent the United States, and she doesn't know Finance Minister Smotrich because maybe he's not on her talking points that were given to her by, who.
Minister Smotrich and the former National Security Minister Ben-Gvir.
As we speaking, Ahmed, I'm looking at my Twitter feed. I can't keep up with the decisions. I'm just reading now that Trump decided to put a freeze on foreign aid, and that includes $1.5 billion of Egypt's. Did you read that?
No, I did not hear that. But what about the foreign aid to Israel?
I have no idea. I'm just starting to read this. And the other thing, what he did is that unfreeze the Biden had decided to put, I think, a number of right-wing settlers.
Yeah, the sanctions against some extremist settlers that have been rampaging and attacking Palestinians in the West Bank.
Yeah.
So he lifted those sanctions, and he also lifted sanctions on the 2,000 and 5,000 pound bombs that Biden had put a freeze on. He's lifted those sanctions. Of course, Biden provided all the other weapons. And by that time, Biden put a freeze on those 2,000 pound bombs. Most of those heavy structures have already been destroyed anyway. I just want to I think now you can hear this audio to finish the questioning from Chris Van Hollen to Representative Stefanik, who's nominated to be America's ambassador to the United Nations.
And the former National Security Minister Bedier, who believed that Israel has a biblical right to the entire West Bank. And in that conversation, you told me that, yes, you shared that view. Is that your view today?
Yes.
Okay. I think when it comes to this very difficult issue, if the president is going to succeed at bringing peace and stability to the Middle East, we're going to have to look at the UN Security Council resolutions, not just the ones on Lebanon, which we should enforce, but other UN Security Council resolutions. And it's going to be very difficult to achieve that if you continue to hold the view that you just expressed, which is a view that was not held by the founders of the State of Israel, who were secular Zionists, not religious Zionists. Thank you, Mr.
Interesting how he points out at the end that the founders were secular Zionists, not religious. Now, the religious Zionists that are in power there now, they're like, apocalyptic type. They want to bring, the end of, they want to bring on this biblical war. And they believe in something called Greater Israel. But for the U.S. representative to the United Nations, that she believes that they have a biblical right to the West Bank, meaning basically all of the land, and there's no right of Palestinians to have any land there. That's against what the United Nations calls for. So you're going in there representing America in the UN, and basically the whole state of Israel was established by the UN. And if you're going there basically not even acknowledging any of the resolutions or any of the things that the UN has established for Israel, then why should the other side recognize Israel if you're not recognizing the other side at all? And the same thing, the U.S. ambassador, Trump nominated Mike Huckabee to be the U.S. ambassador to Israel, and he has also even more crazy views, and he believes that Israel has not only does Israel have the biblical right to all that land, but that Palestinians never even existed, that there's no such thing as Palestine, that these are made-up people. And that's who's going to represent this administration on this issue.
Yet none of them were able to defeat the Palestinians in Gaza with all the might, with all the AI. Now we know that Google was helping the military in Israel, how to target and how to bomb and how to commit genocide. At the end of the day, they cannot wipe a whole indigenous population.
Clarify what you're saying there when you say they were not able to defeat. Gaza's pretty, destroyed. But what do you mean they were not able to defeat them?
Gaza is destroyed, but the people are not marching out of Gaza to the Sinai and leaving and giving up on their land. Actually, if people go to some social media and Google Gazans rebuilding, you will find that the Gazans are not waiting for aid to come from outside. They are already crushing the rubble and trying to build their homes back, are trying to create walls in order to have shelter. So if you have defeated the people, it means that they are in despair. They can't wait to the border and leave. So Israel has might and the U.S. has might, and they can put this Liz think that I think she's too stupid to understand that this guy, that he was really setting her up with her answer. Or Huckabee, or they can say whatever they want, Ahmed. At the end of the day, I, as a Palestinian, will never, ever give up on the idea and the dream of going back to Palestine.
Right now, you're denied to go back, are you?
No,
Or
I'm
can
not
you
denied
go?
as an American citizen. I can go and visit.
Oh, as an American
Yeah, of
citizen,
course.
because you have an
But
American
my
passport.
sister, but my sister, for instance, cannot because she doesn't have an American passport. But I can go. But I mean, if let's say I want to stay there, I think the visa allows you to stay 3 months and then you leave and then you come back 3 months. But if they decide not to let me in, they can.
But you're able to stay there as an American, not as a Palestinian. You don't have Palestinian nationality. That was basically, that's not something you can...
Let's talk about my mother, who was born there. Okay? She was born there. She cannot go. She doesn't have a U.S. passport, so...
And she cannot go even though she was born there. Yet, basically, if the rules in the state of Israel right now, you can, if you're Jewish anywhere in the world, as soon as you land, you get citizenship.
Actually, one of the most fascinating things that I saw with my own eyes when I went to Akka, Akka is my husband's hometown, is that I noticed so many churches. And the bell is ringing. So I was walking with his cousin's son, and I said, "Oh wow! I didn't know that Akka had so many churches or Christians." Or he says, "No, they're all Russian." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "No, the people
Okay.
are."
What?
After the collapse of the Soviet Union, they all claimed that they were Jewish. They came. And with time, they went back to their Christian religion, and they're the ones who are opening these churches and renovating them and keeping them alive. So I said, "So you are telling me that these people are Russian?" He said, "Yeah, these are Russian Christians."
Well, there's a lot of Russians that went there, a lot of Jewish Russians. I remember there was always this organization that's advertising on TV to donate so you can bring Russian Jews back to the homeland.
Another thing, actually, Ahmed, because I keep looking at the Twitter feed while we're talking, that part of what Trump was saying, actually, he said something quite interesting when he was asked, if you remember, the first day he went to the Oval Office and there were reporters and somebody asked him about the war in Gaza, and he said, "It's not our war, it's their war." And people thought, okay, that was something positive in a way, that he's not going to be involved and tangled with it. Then he says, but, and I think Witikoff was on Fox News today, his envoy to the Middle East, and he said, "I'm planning to go to Gaza, I'm planning to go to Israel, and I want to make sure that this ceasefire is going to work and that I'm going to monitor. So I want to make sure that phase 2 is going to happen and implemented, and because I have there is a potential to do normalization in the Arab world, and the normalization is going to be with Saudi Arabia." And then there was this talk about the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia saying, "Okay, we're going to be spending $600 billion, investing $600 billion." And now Trump just said 30 minutes ago, it's $1 trillion. $1 trillion that is going to be invested. So
invested where?
Like in the U.S.
Oh, because last time, I heard Trump say the last time he went, his first international trip is usually to the UK or historically. However, he ended up going to Saudi Arabia, and they asked him why. He said because they said they agreed to invest $400 billion in America back then. That's why I went there. And perhaps if they do that again, but now because of inflation, if they, for inflation, maybe it's 480, 500 billion, then I can go there again as my first trip. But now you're saying he said it's $1 trillion?
Yes, it's a trillion. If you want to hear it, I don't know if this is going to be clear, but let me
No,
play
I
it.
can. If you send me the
Oh, you
link,
can?
I can play it.
Okay, just a second.
That Saudi Arabia will be investing at least $600 billion in America, but I'll be asking the Crown Prince, who's a fantastic guy, to round it out to around $1 trillion. I think they'll do that because we've been very good to them. And I'm also...
How have they been good to them?
And then I think
he's been personally good to the Crown Prince because he kept him out of, prosecution when the whole world knew that he was involved in Jamal Khashoggi
I think
murder.
Sorry, Ahmed, but the rest of the clip was he's going to ask him to lower the price of oil. So this can mean bankruptcy for Saudi Arabia. I mean, this is too much to ask for normalization with Israel.
I mean, if they're normalizing with Israel, shouldn't they be getting something out of it? Or do they have to pay? It seems like Israel needs them more than they need Israel, right? You would think.
Anyways, so many things are happening in such a short time that really we need time to process, because of course there are things related to Europe and related to the Ukraine and related to the rest of the world, but when it comes to things that we care about and there is this weird thing I am just reading now, that Indian women are now who are pregnant and are in the US are trying to do a C-section, because some people assume that, when they talk about the border, they think that it's infiltrated by Muslims and Islamists and all that. But actually, so many of them are not even from Latin America.
Yes.
Many are from other parts of the world. For instance, Moody said that he's going to expatriate, they call it. He will take back 18,000 that crossed the borders recently from India to the US, and that he's willing to pay for them to come back to India.
So there's 18,000 Indians from India that are in the US illegally?
Yeah.
That cross the border through Mexico?
Yeah, so there is obviously a huge industry going out there. But what I'm trying to say is that people assume that most people who come are either terrorists, meaning from the Middle East, or from...
If there's so many terrorists that are coming, why aren't there any attacks? So it's not happening. This is again, they use this as scapegoating. There is, maybe if there is a problem at the border, a lot of these people that are coming here are because their countries are oftentimes impacted by policies of the United States, whether they are in the Southern Hemisphere and, policies by Europe. We can't expect to live in a world where we take the resources of everyone else and they live in extreme poverty and unsafe and without their resources, and somehow that we will be able to just wall ourselves off and nobody can get in, and we live in a completely higher standard. There has to be some sort of economic justice. I mean, if you try to fix they would not be coming here if you helped establish better economies or better opportunities for them in their countries. So instead of spending all this money on military and war and weapons, what about spending that money on, stimulating their economy or creating jobs or creating opportunities for them there, where they'd rather stay in their places? I mean, you see in Syria, now that Syria has been freed from Bashar al-Assad, many people are returning back that were refugees in other places because they want to be back home. There's nothing like being at home. So it's not that everybody just wants to come to the United States. And they're seeing what's happening here. There's a lot of problems in our country. And, the democratic process and the political system here is one of them. the way of life we've had before is now, there's no guarantee that it's going to continue as is. When you see the polarization that we have, the amount of hatred and animosity between, the political parties, and the way things are going, and between ethnic groups and races. A lot of course, is mainly just coming from the white supremacists that are going after everyone else. And they think that now that Trump is back in the White House, that you don't have to worry about the Constitution. We have something called the Constitution, and this is a republic where people's rights are guaranteed, not the rights of just the white, Christian folks. It's the rights of everyone. I mean, there are concerns now that with these potential raids on immigrant communities and deporting people that are out of status, even if they haven't committed any violent crimes or crimes at all. Even because before, there's so much crime and safety issues happening in the country that police and the FBI and others focus on the violent criminals, the people that are making us less safe, not people that, overstayed their visa. That's not what the police are there for. But it seems like this administration is now, I read this earlier today, that they are going to deputize, or they're deputizing, giving deportation powers to other agencies other than ICE, or the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, which historically deals with the deportation. But now ATF agents, alcohol, tobacco, and firearm, and the DEA, Drug Enforcement Agency agents, will be able to go after immigrants and deport them. And, imagine you're not, those people, those type of agents normally deal with violent criminals, right? DEA, they're dealing with drug traffickers and gangs and criminal, cartels. And now they're going to go after, immigrants that overstayed, that haven't committed any crime. They're not going to be dealing with them in a civil way. Most likely, it's going to be a lot different because their training deals with, involves dealing with gangs and criminals and drug dealers that have weapons. How are they going to interact with families, with children, et cetera? I think that's a concern. I think people are scared and feel unsafe right now.
I know we don't have time, Ahmed, but maybe for next week we should have the clip where, to be fair, I think I love Trump I loved him when he said about John Bolton and what he and Dick Cheney did to the Middle East. I don't know if you have seen this clip, but he says, because he removed the security detail, and he says, I thought he was very dumb. I'm quoting here. He was a very dumb person, but I used him well because every time people saw me come into a meeting with John Bolton standing behind me, they thought that he'd attack them because he was a warmonger. I mean, it's so sad that I have to laugh about this, but I'm so happy that Trump really gave John Bolton what he deserves, which is to mention that he and Cheney.
I don't like John Bolton. I mean, he always. Yeah. I mean, that's the one thing I don't agree with Trump on a lot. But John Bolton, he was. Him and Cheney and all those neocons, they were just pure evil. They lied about the Iraq and the weapons of mass destruction. They caused so many people to die and, hemorrhage our treasury to spend money on an illegal war that should never have happened. That's who John Bolton is. And I'm glad that he was actually stripped, and others like him. He was stripped of his secret clearance status, which basically, even though you're not in government, as a government official, you can still work as a consultant or in other matters, and you still have the high, secret clearance, which is valuable. And he stripped it, so now he doesn't get those type of briefings and others. He also took it away from Brennan. Was it Brennan, or the former CIA director of the CIA? Things that presidents don't normally do. He's stripping a lot of the what he thinks is the deep state that's against him. So some of it is, I guess, could be okay, but a lot of it could lead to other consequences. But we're out of time. We're hoping to get the young journalist from Gaza, but maybe we can try to have him back on. We weren't sure if he was going to be able to make it because the connection is always not stable in Gaza, but inshallah we can have him on next week.
Inshallah, Ahmed.
So enjoy the weekend, have a good weekend, and stay safe, and tune in again next Thursday, same time, 12 o'clock for True Talk. This is WMNF Tampa. The news from The Scoop is next. Have a great week.